Yeah, I'm going to say no.
Did she?
Good evening, everyone. We'll call the May 7th meeting to order. Thank you for coming. Public notice will be read at the start of the open public session. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny? Here. Ms. Rubio?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here. Can I have a motion to retire into executive session?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Walsh. Would you read the resolution, please, Ms. Hill?
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations on the SCA, and student matters. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes. Okay, the meeting is closed. We will resume at 7:30. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the May 7th meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Thank you for coming. Take notice, this public meeting of the Sayreville Board of Ed was transmitted to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, further in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6-21. A copy is posted outside the Secretary's office and also filed with the Clerk of the Borough of Sayreville. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny? Ms. Rubio?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here. Could you summarize executive session for us, please?
The board discussed personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations on the SCA, and student matters.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hill. Two announcements before we start the meeting. First of all, today is National Teacher Appreciation Day. So on behalf of the Board of Education and the Sayreville community, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to all of our educators in Sayreville. You know, when you think about the board's major job, our major job is to ensure sufficient and adequate student achievement. And research shows that there is no greater determining factor with regard to student achievement than the teacher in front of the classroom. But more than just student achievement in the traditional sense of test scores and assessments and preparing students for the world of college and career, the other piece of student achievement goes into building great individuals, upstanding citizens, and great members of this community. And when we talk about the fact that, you know, in Sayreville we have this belief that once you're a bomber, you're always a bomber. When you think about it, any one of our students optimally is only in any one of our school buildings for 4 consecutive years. So for that tradition of being a bomber to continue year after year and generation after generation, and for it to truly mean something, that culture really is driven by all of our educational professionals, not just our teachers, but all of our educational support staff, our administrators, our supervisors, our instructional leaders. And all of those individuals come together every single day to create a culture and an environment in our public schools that make all of us say, once we are a bomber, we are always a bomber. So on behalf of the Sayreville Board of Education, I want to extend our heartfelt thanks to our dedicated team of educators here in the Sayreville Public Schools. In addition, we're doing something a little new tonight. We have 21 policies on our agenda for approval for first reading. With the markups, those policies would total 220 pages. So rather than reproducing multiple copies of those, we have a kiosk set up on your left-hand side with Google Chromebooks where you can take a look and review all of those policies. This is only the first reading of those policies as well. So if you would like a copy of those policies, feel free to contact either Dr. Labby or Ms. Hill, and they can certainly send you copies of those policies for you to review at your leisure. We will still be taking public input on those policies at our meeting on May 21st before we adopt them in final fashion.
Oh, I'm confused. I thought we were going to read one aloud, each one of us, including John.
That was the procedure we agreed on, all 220
If we do that,
pages.
we'll only have to go around twice.
Yes. Dr. Labby, don't you have to catch a train to Jackson sometime tonight? So we'll be utilizing that procedure, and all the board members have Chromebooks as well. So with that, we will turn it over to our fantastic student representative, and Mr. Lewis will take your report.
Good evening, everyone. It's been a rather eventful couple of weeks, and that looks to continue as we close out the year. With that said, about 2 weeks ago, we had junior prom at the Battleground Country Club, and now senior prom is this Friday at the Southgate Manor in Edison. Everyone is very excited, and especially since this is the last prom for seniors at the high school. Also in old news, there's an instrumental concert last Friday, and we also celebrated the seniors going to college on National Decision Day, which was May 1st. People and the seniors went into the gym, and we had a group picture of all that are going to college, trade school, whatever that may be toward their next step after graduating this year. The Spanish induction ceremony was last Friday, where sophomores through seniors were inducted into the Spanish Honor Society based upon their merit in the language, and I heard it went muy bueno. It's a failed joke. AP exams have started this week, and they will continue to go into next week, so a lot of people are studying, preparing last minute, and still, even while people are studying, people are going in and preparing for Powder Puff, which is soon, or baseball has GMC tournaments, so people are going to sports and clubs and preparing for these last minute and especially these last couple of tests that really matter before quarterlies and the end of the year. And to close it off, students and staff are looking forward to the student council trip, which is the day before Disney. Of course, Disney, which is, we have a meeting actually on May 16th, and then National Honor Society breakfast on May 18th. And then also, the student council is going and doing ballots for next year's board, in which a new student rep on the Board of Education will be elected. So that's all I have for today. Anyone
Have
any
the
questions?
candidates for that position been declared yet, or are they still?
Not yet. It's in application mode right now.
Okay, all right. Encourage someone good to follow in your lead.
I'm trying, yeah.
All right.
What about Lewis?
He wants to be president. So we'll see.
Just moving right to the top.
Yeah.
All right.
So he wants to do.
Any other questions or any questions for our student representative? All right, thank you, Mr. Lewis. All right, moving on. Next up is our budget presentation. Dr. Labby, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Andrew. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our public hearing. I'm going to try to make this brief. I have a good role model. Last week, I went to the Middlesex County School Boards Association dinner, and there was a superintendent there, and he should be my role model for giving presentations. So I'm going to try not to follow in his footsteps. Of course, as you know, from the moment we started with our presentation, the development of a budget is a collaborative process, beginning with our Board of Education, our central administrators, principals, directors, assistant principals, supervisors, certified and non-certified staff, faculty, sports staff, and so forth, as well as the public. We did get some recommendations from the public, too. I would like to give a very, very special thanks to our Board of Education Finance Committee for all their guidance and support, and of course to Ms. Hill, who does the true work with regard to developing the budget. And as always, she did so with great precision, as well as speed in many cases when we were crunching numbers and so forth. So our commendations go out to you, Ms. Hill, for that. Thank you very much. Here's the budget calendar. As you can see, we began with the State of the Schools address in October, and then we proceeded in January through our individual budget presentations, which we changed a couple years ago, and they really worked well. Our principals and directors had an opportunity to present their goals, and then an opportunity to express what their wants and needs were, so that we all got an idea of what are some of the things that were needed as we go ahead into that initial phase. And if you know the phases of budget development, our people put in their wants and needs, and then we go ahead and we cut. We cut until we get our state aid, until we're pretty sure of the revenue that we're going to have, and then we go ahead and we listen very closely to those presentations, and we begin to bring items back based upon need. And case in point, this year, we cut the budget bare bones. I think we cut about $11 million initially off of it. But then when we received our state aid and we received other types of revenues, we began to, based upon the presentations that we heard, bring things back. So we're very, very happy with our finished product here, and I'll go through some of the reasons why. So as you know, we are here right now, May 7th. The next step will be submission, hopefully after our board, hopefully we get an adoption from you this evening. And when that happens, we'll then ask to submit that to the Department of Education. Basically, they've given us preliminary approval, but we did make some changes from the preliminary budget, so we're going to ask them to approve those changes. And then, obviously, by the end of May, it gets down to the Board of Taxation and so forth. Here's our current enrollment. As you can see, we still are going up in enrollment. We're pretty much even with 2017-18, but Mr. Sayak has mentioned this on a couple of occasions, and it does speak true if you look at our numbers. And basically how I got this, Board of Education members, you know that every month I send you an enrollment update, and you also know that we take a snapshot in October for our basic funding needs that we send to the Department of Education. So what I did was I used our numbers in October for each one of these years here, and then of course I projected for next year by moving each grade level up and so forth. But as you can see here, Mr. Sayak has talked about it before, our elementary schools seem to be flat or maybe even decreasing in enrollment, whereas our middle school and high school continues to increase. And you can see that's why we're projecting that's going to push us up about 20 more students next year. Also take into account the preschool numbers. The numbers that you receive monthly are the numbers of just the students eligible for special education services, not the kids on a tuition base. So what I do is I add the tuition-based kids in, but you can see the numbers are flat from last year to this year because we have no more space. We ran out of space last year, so that's why our numbers did not go up. We're right at about 285, close to 300 kids in our preschool program, simply because we have no more places to put them. However, I'll talk a little bit later about something called preschool expansion aid, which could change the game for us with regard to preschool. Of course, here is our mission. I won't read it. We all know it pretty well. But everything in the budget process begins with our mission. And then it continues on with our vision. And as we all know, we adopted Vision 2030 back in the spring of 2014. And we are in actually the second phase of Vision 2030. In fact, if you remember, last September, actually 2 Septembers ago, September 2017, we developed a new set of new strategic action plan with new sets of goals for the next 4 years. We are in actually we are completing the second year of that 4-year plan this year. And that 4-year strategic action plan focused on these domains: facilities, technology, finance, student achievement, and culture and climate. Here are the 2018-19 goals. And I thought, just as we've done with our individual school presentations, we would go through where we are right now with our goals. Everything that I've highlighted here in yellow, those are goals that we've accomplished. So when it comes to finance, we completed 3 out of the 4 goals. However, we're still not sure yet on the revenues for our catering services. So we might achieve 4 out of the 4 goals that we took. And again, these are goals that we took from the strategic action plan. These aren't goals that we developed. These were goals that were developed in the strategic action plan that we selected for this year. Facilities, again, you can see that we've met 3 out of the 4 goals, and the one that we didn't meet was because the silly superintendent felt that we would not only get the secure retention vestibules built for the high school, middle school, and SAMSL this year, but we'd also have the other schools by August of 2019, which was me being very unrealistic. However, I will say to you that Board of Education members, in this budget are the funds for the secure retention vestibules for our 4 elementary schools. And I will tell you that they've already begun work on the secure retention vestibules at SAMSL, the middle school, and a little bit here. So by the end of August, the secure retention vestibules at the high school, middle school, and SAMSL will be in place. And hopefully, again, around the same time next year, we'll have those secure retention vestibules in at the elementary schools. When it comes to technology, again, we accomplished, of these 7 goals, we accomplished 6 of them already. And the one we didn't is form a unified technology professional development curriculum and operations and facilities technology. Mr. Glockmoy, maybe you can help me out with that. Where are we with that one?
Actually, we've formed it.
We've accomplished that? So please take your yellow highlighters and fill that one in too. So we've accomplished that goal as well. Student achievement, because our scores, our goals here are based upon the New Jersey State Learning Assessment, at least the first 2, we won't know whether we accomplish those goals or not until we get those scores. We do have one here that relates to students exiting basic skills or academic support. We'll know that by the end of June. And then culture and climate, thanks to our Director of Human Resources and our Supervisor of Professional Development and all of our wonderful teachers that participate on our School Culture and Climate Committee, we've accomplished all those goals as well. So we've done a lot of good work. Again, these are not goals that we went ahead and developed on our own. These are goals that were in the strategic action plan. So it brings us to our budget. We use our goals from this year to kind of define where we want to go next year and look at the funds we're going to need to accomplish that. So our budget challenges. With every year, salary wages are going to increase. So with this particular year, we had a 3.36% increase in salaries to the tune of about $1.9 million. We also are going to need to increase security. Many of you may have heard already there was another school shooting in Colorado. Latest reports are 7 kids were shot. We're not sure how many fatalities or not. But again, this is something that's not going away, folks. And we have to make sure that we're not fooling ourselves and thinking that this is something that couldn't happen here. So we've made a great fiscal and resources commitment to making sure that we've uncovered every stone here in Sayreville to ensure the safety of our students and our staff. So that continues to be a challenge. Our aging facilities and grounds is a challenge. And the increased enrollment, as I just mentioned, at the middle school and high school does present a challenge to us. The budget highlights, I'm just going to go through these particular areas and highlight the major things that are part of this budget that it will address not only some of those challenges, but some of the goals that we're looking forward to in the following year. In terms of finance, the budget has an increase, a tax levy increase of 2%, just 2%. In years past, we've increased it by more than that due to an enrollment waiver or a health benefits waiver. That's not part of this budget. It's just a 2% tax levy increase, which we're allowed to do in accordance with regulations. We did receive a $2.5 million, a 9% increase in state aid, and our thanks go out to the Department of Education for that, because much of what we were able to accomplish in this budget, we would not have been able to without that $2.5 million increase. We also increased our miscellaneous revenue. That's our revenues that we get from our tuitions. That's our revenues that we get from E-rate, as well as things like using our facilities. We increased that close to $200,000, well over $100,000. So that's a big thing. As you know, we keep track of that, and we're already, in terms of our revenues, over the $1 million mark. However, we did get a decrease in extraordinary aid. Based upon the formulas, the trends we've been seeing, the state has been giving us less and less percent of the things that we're putting in for. So we did budget for less extraordinary aid. In terms of other grants and federal funding, We did experience a slight increase in semi reimbursement thanks to the hard work of Mr. Nasser and his team. They're able to gain reimbursement to the tune of $12,000 more. So great job to Mr. Nasser and his department for continuing to try to get as much revenue as they can from the Special Education Medicaid Initiative. We do have a decrease in E-rate, and that's the funding that we get for technology projects, simply because we don't have any infrastructure projects in this particular budget. As you remember, last year, we did have a lot of E-rate funding because we had several pretty big infrastructure projects that we were able to get E-rate reimbursement for. And Eric, jump in if I'm saying anything incorrect. We did have a reduction. We're expecting a potential reduction in federal grant funding. You might have heard it. I think Mr. Sayak talked about that. I know it's been talked about before in terms of special education funding, maybe decreasing and so forth through IDEA and stuff. So we're bracing for that. So we did reduce federal funding by about 15% in terms of our revenues. However, we did get targeted school improvement funds this year, and we're expecting to get that for the middle school next year. We got about $56,000 increase this year, and we're probably going to get something around that next year, right, Dr. Shediak? I hope so. If you did not know and you haven't heard us at board meetings, Dr. Shediak, Mrs. Maharana, who is the supervisor of mathematics, has been very hard at work with our business department here, as well as our math teachers and our science teachers, to create what's called a career and technical education program. They have created that program. They've created programs in accounting and marketing.
Accounting's the only one that's up for approval right now.
But potentially marketing after that. This is good news for us because this will now make us eligible for Perkins Grant. So if we are accepted, our CTE programs are accepted, we can get Perkins Grant funding for next year. So we're hopeful, we have our fingers crossed with regard to that. And I made reference to it earlier. We have been told, we were on the list last year. We were invited to apply for preschool expansion aid, and we've been told that we're probably going to be invited again. So if the superintendent does not drop the ball this time, hopefully we'll be able to secure some preschool expansion aid as well. And that would really help out our budget as such. Last thing is, we did not have any fund balance this year in terms of debt services. If you remember, we did some bond refunding a couple of years ago, and because of that, we had some fund balance that we were able to reduce the amount of money in debt services because of, but that was only a 2-year deal, correct, Ms. Hill? Okay. So those are our finance highlights. When it comes to facilities and infrastructure within this budget, we are going to, as I said earlier, constructing secure retention vestibules at Arleth, Wilson, Truman, and Eisenhower. We're going to be completing half of the window replacements at the Eisenhower Elementary School. We're going to be paving the Sayreville War Memorial High School, Sayreville Middle School, and we're going to try to get as many of the elementary schools done as well. You might notice SAMCEL is not part of that. Well, the big reason is because currently within this budget, we are constructing a bus parking lot at SAMCEL. And by the way, their parking lot is probably the newest of all of our schools. Salover needs a parking lot, but we're not ready yet to invest money in paving at Salover for obvious reasons. We're going to refurbish the copy room, faculty lounge bathrooms here at the high school. If you do not know, you're not aware of that, they probably have not been refurbished since this high school was built. And they have been for many years desperately in need of renovation. As well as we're going to replace the floor at the middle school in the cafeteria, as well as in the gymnasium. We're also going to be replacing the chairlift at the middle school. At the Eisenhower School, we're going to be pulling up that old rug and replacing it with a nice floor, which we also plan to do at several other schools. And we're going to be, and this was a goal, this was one of our goals in transportation, was to purchase new buses. So we are purchasing 6 new buses. 3 replacement buses because 3 buses are expiring, 54-seaters. We have to replace them anyways. But we're going to be purchasing an additional 54-seater as well as 2 24-seater vans, which will help us out considerably. When it comes to technology, and Mr. Glock-Malloy, correct me if I'm wrong, so far with regard to security, we've gone ahead and we have 100% security cameras on our exteriors, correct?
The project is underway.
Currently underway also is the blind spots at the middle school, SAMCEL, and the high school.
The middle school, Sampson High School were underway project both inside and outside.
Inside, okay.
K-3 schools were underway just on the outside.
And that's, and for next year's budget will be K-3 interior, right? So by the end of next year, with this budget, we will not only have security cameras looking at the inside and the outside of all of our buildings, but now we'll have interior cameras for the first time ever in all of our buildings. Right now, we only have interior cameras here at the high school, but there are some spots that we do not have. We're going to be filling in those spots. Same thing with the middle school in Sampson. But after next year, with this funding, we will have interior cameras now in our elementary schools too. And again, that goes back to the challenges. Security is a major challenge. We will also be purchasing dual band police radios. Basically, what we have right now is we have a walkie-talkie radio that communicates with the police. Unfortunately, that walkie-talkie radio does not communicate with anybody else in the building, just the police. We're going to be purchasing an assortment of dual band radios that will not only communicate with the police department, they'll also communicate with the existing walkie-talkie radios that are in buildings. So now, potentially, as the principal of this school, I could have a radio that I can communicate with the other assistant principals and everybody else in the building, but I can also communicate directly with the police department. Furthermore, I can communicate with somebody over at central administration on my radio and so forth. So we're going to be purchasing those radios too within this budget. For the first time ever, we'll be at a 1-to-1 ratio in terms of device and students. As you know, last year with the purchase of 1-to-1 devices, we were able to do that for preschool through 5th grade. Now with this year's budget, we'll be able to do that K through 12. Along with that, we have some new softwares, a nursing management software, which our nurses have been requesting for years. We're able to finally do that. Our guidance department is going to be able to have access to a new college and career readiness software, which they have been asking for quite a bit of time. And we're going to continue our work with OnCourse and purchase a new learning management software that will greatly enhance the ability of our middle school and our high school teachers to teach their lessons and so forth. In curriculum and instruction, within this budget, we are purchasing a new kindergarten through 5th grade Envision Math electronic platform, textbook, and resources. We're also going to be purchasing, excuse the typo there with middle school, a new middle school math learning software. We have not identified that yet, but we are going to be purchasing that. We're going to be purchasing ST Math for the preschool. And ST Math is a very popular software that we're using in K through 5, but we're going to start our preschools with it. And they'll work their way through grade 5. Likewise, we're going to be purchasing Fontes and Pinnell. That's the reading system that we currently use for grades K through 2. We're going to be purchasing the Fontes and Pinnell reading system for grade 3 now, as well as preschool. Right now, we use Tools of the Mind as our basic curriculum in preschool, but based upon the feedback that I've received from Mr. Nasser as well as Ms. Burns, they feel that when our kids go to kindergarten, they don't have the basic building blocks to mathematics and literacy, and we feel that by giving them an opportunity to use ST Math, as well as the Fontes and Pinnell reading system, not only will our kids go into kindergarten with the appropriate language, social, and cognitive skills, now we'll also hopefully have them go into that grade level with the appropriate literacy skills, building block skills, as well as math building block skills. We have some new courses at the middle school and high school, so we're going to be buying textbooks and resources for them. We have a new integrated science class that we're going to have next year, a new statistics class. At the middle school, we'll have a new pre-algebra. At the middle school, it's statistics, right? Here, all right. Pre-algebra basic skills will be at the middle school. And then we have an assortment, in Board of Education, we recently gave you that, an assortment of new electives for the middle school, where we're going to need textbooks and supplies for those classes. As we did last year, we purchased about $100,000 worth of new instruments for our band last year. We're not going to be doing that to the tune of $100,000, but we have provided extra monies to our band so they can continue the process of purchasing new instruments. And then finally, something that a lot of people are very happy about, we are going to introduce a new sport to the high school, and that will be boys and girls lacrosse. Interestingly enough, you'll see on the Board of Education agenda this evening that we're asking you to approve a club, a volleyball club. If all goes well, that could be the next sport that we introduce, particularly since we have about 150 kids that have signed up for the volleyball club. In terms of staffing, this budget does include new staffing. It includes a new technology security secretary, information and technology engineer, an evening buildings and grounds security supervisor, campus monitors. We've already done that, but we've increased our full-time campus monitors to 16, and now, as you can see in this room, we have 2 part-time evening campus security monitors. That's all part of this budget. We also budgeted for 4 lunch aides at both the middle school and the high school, and this will now free up teachers that currently have lunch duty to do other things. At the high school and middle school, we've adopted this opportunity room where kids during lunchtime can go and get extra academic work. Both schools now have lunch detentions, where instead of serving an after-school detention, our kids can go during lunch and do a module on a new software that we purchased called Evolutionary Labs, where if you come to school late, you do a short module on being on time, the importance of being on time and so forth. The kids actually like it, and they've been doing a great job with their modules. And it counts as an after-school detention, so a lot of our kids are liking the fact that they can do that. But it also frees more teachers up for other things that we might need them to do in the building rather than do lunch duty. In addition, as I mentioned before, one of the things that we'll need if we do get that preschool expansion aid is a director of preschool. The budget, in this budget, there is the funds for a director of preschool, but as you can see there too, there are 285 kids in that preschool program. That's only about 50 shy of what is right now at the Wilson School. So basically, that preschool is an elementary school, and you need someone to oversee that, not be a supervisor and an overseer of that program. We need an administrator that is anchored there, focus on that program. In the budget, as you can see, I mentioned earlier that we have enrollment increases at the middle school and high school, and as you can see, this reflects that. There are, in our middle school classes, in our high school classes, there are some gym classes that have 45 to 50 kids in them. And with the funding that we've got in this grant, we'll be able to reduce class sizes in not only those subject areas, but in all subject areas. So we're asking within this budget to fund a new PE teacher at the middle school as well as at the high school, a new science teacher at the high school. I mentioned before that integrated science class. We also want to introduce that advanced computer science class. So this is not only going to be a science teacher, but it could also be a computer science teacher as well. We need a special education teacher here at the high school for our behavioral development program. And because enrollment is going up, we are well over 1,800 kids here at the high school. We need some more school counselors. So in this budget, there is also a new school counselor. And then finally, we have some new academic support instruction teachers that we're budgeting for. And we're looking like we're going to budget for them to be at SAMHSA. But that could change. Health benefits, as of right now, we're looking at a 2% increase in medical benefits, and that's put into this budget, and 0% increases in both prescription as well as dental. Here's a pie chart that you can look at on your own in terms of how personnel costs are proportioned. Here are the changes made from the preliminary budget. So I mentioned earlier that you approved the preliminary budget, but now we have to submit to the Department of Education anything that we change from that. Here are those changes. Here are the appropriations broken down by chart, as well as pie chart. Kudos to Ms. Hill, she did all this. In terms of special revenue fund, here they are by chart. Here's debt fund services by chart. Revenue comparison by chart. And a graphic for your revenue comparison. As you can see, 66% of our funding is coming from the local tax levy, but naturally this number has gone up. I believe I said earlier 9% from last year. So this went up 9% from last year. And that 9% is really going to good use. The Special Revenue Fund, Debt Services Fund, Again, I won't go through this. You can look at this in your presentation handouts. Revenue analysis in the pie chart. And then finally, the moment we've been all waiting for. How will this impact the average homeowner here in Sayreville? By the tune of about $75.38 a year. Oh, there we go. I believe I was much better than that person from Middlesex County School Boards.
You were outstanding.
Any questions?
Board members with questions on the budget? Sure.
You said we were getting new buses. Do we not need new bus drivers? Are we taking over, are we doing more of our own routes by doing these
So
buses?
that's what we're looking at, so we're going out to, there's a couple routes that aren't getting renewed, so we're going out to bid for those, and we're gonna look at those costs. One of the other things we've taken into consideration is the athletic trips that we have after school. I mean, we're getting gouged by contractors at this point for those, so we're looking to see what the better option is when we get those prices back. So we've restructured a couple of things, so we're gonna go out to bid, and then we'll go from there.
So you don't know if you need new bus drivers yet? Is that the answer?
Right, well, even if we do need the new bus drivers, we're gonna lose the funds for the contractor costs, so we'll have savings there and it would offset each other. So I don't have an answer in the budget of what we're doing exactly, so I haven't put that in.
So when you put the new buses in the budget, you didn't decrease the contracting numbers?
No, I did not,
So you left the contracting numbers the
Right.
same and then just put the buses in?
exactly.
For those reasons.
And we're not changing the courtesy busing rules this year, right?
No.
Because it's brought up already.
No.
Other questions on the budget?
I have a question.
Mrs. Kenny?
Can you just explain again the difference between a supervisor and director of preschool?
Well, currently, what we have is someone who is the elementary supervisor and also the supervisor of the preschool program. So it's supervisor of preschool and elementary. But that person is a supervisor of teachers in other buildings. So that person has to leave the building to go supervise and observe other people. And when that person leaves the building, they're leaving their operation.
So like a principal?
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
basically, well, there's no
There's not
in
a-
order for it to be, we can't call that person a principal because of the fact that that's already a school. So if we were to have a separate school just for the preschool, then we could call that person a principal. But outside of that, we can only call that person a director.
Other questions on the budget?
You might have said this already, I might have missed it. The difference for extraordinary aid between the 650 and the 900, what was the change?
The percentage decreased last year, so we had budgeted for 900,000, but we only got about 650,000.
Okay,
So
so
the
last
state
year's
reduced
budget
it.
number was not
Yeah.
good.
Right, so even in this year, we had budgeted 900, and we likely won't get that, so we're gonna have a shortfall there.
And what happens is, there's no way of predicting. What you do is you submit your applications, and the Department of Education determines what percentage of your application to give you. So at one point, when we got to $900,000, I believe they approved 65% of our application. This last year, they approved 59%.
It was lower.
Was it?
Oh, it was
50%.
50, yeah.
So they dropped 15%. So there's no way really of predicting how much, what percentage you're going to get back. But what we don't want to be in is in a position where we predicted too much.
So what was the current year actual for extraordinary aid?
Last year, it was, I wanna say
18-19.
18-19, I don't know yet. I only know 17-18.
We haven't even submitted it yet.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, we get it after the school year ends.
Okay, so what was it, so then you only have
It was,
17,
I
18?
wanna say 652,000.
Other questions on the budget? All right, Dr. Labia, I would just like to commend you as well as the administrative team. We did that Vision 2030 planning session almost 2 years ago now, and a lot of times when you do a strategic plan, one of two things happens. It either goes on a shelf and everyone goes back to doing what they did before, or people do stuff and then at the end of the year try to figure out, okay, what did we do and how does it fit in the strategic plan that we were supposed to be doing? And I keep that plan on the side of my desk at home, and we're actually following it, and we're implementing it year by year. And the timing shifts sometimes on items from year to year, but more often than not, we're on track with that strategic plan.
Thank you.
And that's really what Vision 2030 is all about.
Thank you.
All right, hearing no further comments, we'll open up to public following the superintendent's report when we go through right before we vote, so that people can comment on the budget if they wish to do so. Okay, so moving on, Mr. Esposito, you said that,
He means right after the,
yeah, we're going to do the superintendent's report, and then we'll do it all in one shot. Save you a step up to the microphone. All right, Mr. Esposito, there's no highlights this evening?
No highlights.
Okey dokey. Moving on to approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the executive and regular session of April 9th?
so moved.
By Mr. Walsh, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Bloom. Any remarks on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor? I'm sorry, you would think I would know that. Roll call.
Mr. Belka,
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco,
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Esposito,
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny,
Yes.
Ms. Rubio,
Yes.
Mr. Walsh.
Yes.
Mr. Syak.
Yes. Okay, Dr. Labby, if you would take us through your superintendent's report.
Finance and infrastructure, among many others, the two that I'm going to highlight are the approval of the proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-20. You can find that on page 2, that entire resolution. And number 2, you can also find the list of professional service contracts that we're asking you to approve for the 2019-20 school year. And as I said, there are other things on there, but I believe those are the two most important.
Any questions on finance and infrastructure? Next.
Student achievement, we're asking you to approve co-curricular clubs and activities, and I think I made mention of this earlier. Two of the most important ones, we're asking you to approve the creation of a volleyball club at the high school during the 2019-20 school year, and as I told you before, we had about 150 kids signed up for that, so we're real happy about that. And then I'm also very excited to tell you, or ask you to approve the inception of a National Junior Honor Society at the Sayreville Middle School, beginning in 2019-20.
Any questions on those items, student achievement? Okay, next.
Governance, beginning with number 3, we're asking you to approve, to not require the students and staff of the Sayreville Middle School and Sayreville War Memorial High School to make up the school day that was missed on April 8th due to a water main break. So in essence, we're asking you to forgive that. And then likewise, with regard to that, we're asking you to approve a revision to the 2018-19 school year in order to make up June 19th a half day, June 19th a half day, and June 21st now the last day of school for students on page, you can find that on page 22. So again, the big revision of that is we did not use one of our snow days. So as a result, we're asking you to shift the calendar up. So rather than the last day be June 24th for students, we're asking you to make June 21st the last day for students. Again, if you remember in item number 3, we're asking you to forgive the middle school and high school students for the one day. But we also are asking you to create a third half day. So there'll be half days on June 19th, 20th, and 21st. And then finally, we're asking you to approve for a first reading 754 new Board of Education policies and regulations. No, just kidding. I believe there are 22?
21.
21. The ones that I would like to point out to you, some of them are just minor revisions and so forth, but policy 9143 would ask for a new student council representative from the middle school, I believe. So hopefully you took the time to read that. I think that's very exciting as well. And then finally, as we've been trying to do for a while now, as everyone knows, we have our new screening and metal detecting policies and searching, policies at the middle school and high school, as well as all of our schools, but the middle school and high school for students. So we needed policy and regulations to support that. And that's why 3517 security as well as 1250 visitors were revised.
for the benefit of the board, the student council representative from the middle school, that idea actually came from Mr. Gluhusky, the principal of the middle school. It's part of his culture and climate initiative at the middle school, where they want these students to exhibit greater ownership in setting the building's culture and climate. So as a result, he thought that there would be some benefit of a middle school student representative to give a report at the board meetings as well.
On the calendar, middle school and high school kids now have 181 days, I assume? Is that right?
Yes, Dr. Labby, the middle school and high school have 181, correct?
Excuse me?
The middle school and high school students have 181 days,
Correct.
correct?
Okay, so we're still have a day in the bank if something happens.
Yes.
Yes.
But, Mr. Balco, we don't want to talk
We
about
don't.
that. Okay.
No more power outages or anything like that. Any other questions on governance?
I have a question. The visitors policy, it said that if you submit your photo ID, it can be screened against a database. What kind of database? Would it be like, what kind of database do we have access to that it would screen it against?
The software that we purchased a number of years ago for our ID screening screens against criminal, basically the sex offender database.
Okay, so it's not like, we don't have access to motor vehicle database or anything, it's just a
No,
sex offender?
it's what would generally be available to the public, it's just in a condensed form. So instead of searching for someone individually through multiple resources on the web, it's available through this one platform.
Okay, so is that the only one, or is there a future of another database, or is this the only one we're considering?
The only other thing we'd cross-reference is if we made any internal notations, in our student information system, any custody notations, things of that nature. So our own internal databases would be the other.
So it would screen against the internal database when they run it? Will that be for everyone that enters?
When people enter, we check anyone who's coming in. We screen them against our security software, which checks those external databases, and we check anyone's identification against the student record that they're coming to visit.
And you're doing that now?
Yes.
All right, so the policy is just catching up with what we're doing? Okay.
Supporting us in what we're doing.
The other question, there was a lot of changes made, well, there was one for students with disabilities, it was like all red, is that a brand new?
No, that's a special education policy. There were significant changes to it. It was just easier to get rid of everything that was there and rewrite the entire policy.
Okay, and was that an internally generated thing, or is it based on law changes? Like, there was a lot of changes?
That's all based on New Jersey School Board. So it's law changes, it's reg changes, it's better wording, and it was also reviewed by Mr. Nestor as well.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily an internal thing that we did, it was
No,
to comply with regulations?
correct.
Okay, and then there was one on teacher evaluation. There were a lot of changes in that. Was that all internal changes, or was that based on changes in rules, or
That was all based on changes in rules from New Jersey School Boards as
from
well.
New Jersey School Board? So there isn't anything that we didn't like that we changed in
We
there?
didn't customize anything on that one, correct?
No?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions on governance? Yes, Mrs. Bloom.
We weren't able to do anything about the 24th,
That's my question.
the last day. Are you still working on it?
No, the 24th, the way I explained it to our administrators, as well as the way I just explained it to our high school teachers, is that we're going to keep the 24th on there, but basically, we're going to tell our teachers that if they can successfully fulfill their requirements on Friday the 21st, then there's no need for them to return on Monday the 24th. So we have that there, just because it's there. However, if our teachers are able to successfully fulfill their end-of-the-year procedures or requirements, they need not return on Monday the 24th. However, Dr. Shediak, you have to be there on June 24th. And you too, Mr. Glock-Malloy.
No
And
problem.
you too.
Right.
Oh.
The principal
I'm taking the 24th off, I'm sorry. Ed, my vacation day's coming soon.
I just had a comment.
Yes, Mrs. Kenny.
I just wanted to thank you for looking into not having the dates for the field trips on there, and I noticed they're not there this time, so.
Mrs. Bloom yelled at me at first for that.
I asked
Oh,
a
there was an
question.
exclamation point. There were 2 exclamation points in that email.
That's my ha-ha. When you see two X, I can't draw a smiley face underneath it, so when it's two.
Like, where's the dates question?
I said to him,
She's
there
like,
are no
"Where's the
dates,
dates?"
and then he said, we agreed not to show them, and I said, oh, thank you. Then I remembered.
Yeah, but it was a good recommendation.
Any other questions on governance? Okay, next.
In terms of personnel, we do have some bittersweet things to talk about, as we sometimes do at this time of year, and a few surprises with regard to that. So we do have some retirements. I'm going to begin with Diane Hayes, who is a cafeteria worker, as well as Tremaine Lieberman. For 25 years, Diane Haynes has been a cafeteria worker and served the students of the Wilson School. She has been an example of what a true cafeteria worker is, as she has embraced a lot of changes through the years and has faced each one with that great smile of hers. Diane is and has had such a heart for the Wilson School cafeteria and, of course, the children that she serves so incredibly well there. She showed that by being very conscientious, caring, and kind, she showed this by being very conscientious, caring, and kind. And naturally, she will be extremely missed. So we say farewell to Diane, and we wish her nothing but the very best life can offer her in the next chapter of her life. Tremaine Lieberman, a.k.a. Queenie, worked at the high school, middle school, and eventually is retiring from the Samsel Upper Elementary School. She came to work, much like Miss Haynes, with an incredible smile, ready for a day, and of course, being kind and helping wherever needed, particularly when she was working with our students. She was a mother figure to all of the people that worked with her, and of course, all of the students, and ran circles around everyone. She had the energy of a 20-year-old, and no job was ever too much for her. She taught everyone how to enjoy each day, and that it could always be worse. So we too wish Tremaine Lieberman nothing but the best in her well-deserved retirement. We want her to enjoy every minute of it. And I did have a person that I was not able to talk about at our last meeting, Miss Ellen Rice, who's also retiring. Ellen has been an example of professionalism in the high school cafeteria as well for the past 24 years. Like Diane and Tremaine, she is always, or has been always, willing to jump in and help where her coworkers needed her. She has gone through a lot of changes between different regulations for school meals and even part of the redevelopment of the high school. However, as with Tremaine and Diane, she always did so with a great attitude and an incredible smile. Her personality and, of course, her spirit impressed and inspired everyone. And like Tremaine, Diane, and Ellen, we wish her nothing but the very best, and we wish her cheers on her well-deserved retirement. I also received retirements notices just recently from two very distinguished employees of the district, and two that have meant an incredible amount to me. I'm going to talk off the top of my head for a moment, so please excuse me if I trip up on any of my words, particularly because both of these individuals bring quite a bit of emotion to me, because I have worked very closely with them, and I will miss each one dearly. I'd like to begin with Miss Maureen Proudman, who is, of course, my secretary. She has worked in the Sayreville Public Schools for close to 30 years. She started out as a cafeteria worker, and then a secretary, and then she has been the confidential secretary, I believe, for myself as well as my predecessor. Not only is Maureen an incredibly proficient administrative assistant, she's also one of the most proficient people I know with regard to human resources. She is well-versed in the Department of Education regulations, particularly in the area of certification, and was an incredible help to me while I was serving as both superintendent and director of human resources. Moreover, Maureen is probably one of the most caring, personable people I've ever met. And to move on forward with that, probably one of the most loyal people that I've ever had the privilege and honor to be around. And from the moment I came here to Sayreville, I was always greeted each morning with an incredible smile as she rocked out to Ozzy Osbourne and some of the other tunes that came out of her radio. People used to love coming to my office, not to see me, but to talk to Maureen and listen to the great rock and roll music that she listened to in the morning, and she sang very loudly too. But she was an incredible secretary, confidant, and friend, and someone that not only will I miss incredibly, I already miss her. As many of you know, she's currently taking care of her husband, who is in a very tragic accident. So there's not a day that goes by that I do not think of Maureen, and there's not a day that goes by that I will not miss Maureen as she pursues the next chapter of her life, as she should, with her husband. Many times when you experience tragedy like that, you come to the realization that life is very short and it's very fragile, and you need to make the very best out of every moment. And she is someone that has given 150% of herself, nothing but the very best of herself, for each person that she has worked with, each superintendent, the cafeteria, and of course, the students and the staff members in the Sayreville Public Schools. So we too wish her nothing but the very best that life can offer her, Barry, their new grandson, and their entire family. And we thank her for the outstanding service that she provided our district and our students. The next person is someone that, again, I've had the privilege to not only work with, but get to know and call a friend, as well as a colleague. Carmen Davis, who is the current principal of the Wilson Elementary School, will also be leaving us. Carmen joined our team in our district 6 years ago. Prior to that, she worked as a principal in several other districts, including Lakehurst, and then as, of course, a teacher. She served impeccably in education for over 18 years. I've worked with a number of different administrators. I considered myself a pretty darn good elementary principal. And I can say to you with all honesty that I couldn't compare to Carmen Davis. She is by far, if she's not the absolute best elementary principal I've ever had the honor to work with, she's in the top two. She's that exceptional. She went to Wilson when Wilson had some struggles with regard to student performance. She quickly turned that school around. For the past several years, it has been the leader in this district in student performance. And yes, the number one factor in learning is the teacher. So the teachers at the Wilson School should be very, very proud of that accomplishment. But everything begins with leadership. And she was the leader that motivated and inspired our teachers to do what they could to effectuate the changes in student performance that were made in the 6 years that she was there. She is someone that is able to immediately connect with people and utilize that very strong rapport that she develops to get people to trust her. Moreover, to get people to see where she wants to take them and to allow her to take them there. She challenged her staff, but she demonstrated every day how much she truly appreciated and was grateful for all that they were doing for the students in their classrooms. Again, she is what an elementary school principal is. She is the mold of what every elementary school principal should strive to be like. And she will be an incredible loss to the Wilson School as well as this school district. But nevertheless, we all love her very much and care about her and realize that it's time for her to move on to the next phase of her life with her beloved husband. And I, again, as with the other individuals that I've mentioned this evening, I wish her the absolute best of luck in the next chapter. And I wish her everything that life has and can offer her. And I will miss her dearly. And we thank her from the bottom of our hearts for all that she's done for the Wilson School, this school district, and of course, the students, staff, and parents of the Wilson School community. Moving along, items number 6 and 7, as well as number 23, we're asking to appoint new certificated and non-certificated staff for this year as well as next year. We have a very special appointment that we're asking you to make for our new student information systems center.
Student Information Systems and Data Management Specialist.
So we have our new student information and systems and data.
Not just information.
Information Systems and Data Manager.
That's why you need a manager, you don't.
And
know
I never
data.
knew that Eileen was not her first name, but I only know her as Eileen Giovenco. So we're very proud to ask you to appoint Ms. Giovenco to that position. We know that she's been an incredible asset to our school district, particularly the Stamsell Upper Elementary School. And therefore, we are extremely confident that she's going to be an amazing asset to our information technology department in that capacity. And you can find her request for appointment on page 20, on the addendum, and that's number 23. We're also asking you to approve of the transfer of a non-certificated staff member for the remainder of this year. Approve of coaches and advisors with their stipends for the 2019-20 school year. You can find that on pages 26 and 28. We're asking you to appoint personnel to perform summer IEP work, and that's from June 26th through August 31st. This is a standard appointment that we're asking you to make. You can find that on page 28, and one of your attachments is the list of staff that Mr. Nastor is asking you to appoint for summer IEP work, as well as the estimated hours. And we're also asking you to approve personnel to work during Camp Excel, which is our extended school year program. And that will be held this year, as we've noted before, from July 8th through August 8th. And you can find that on page 28, and you can see who those people are in one of the attachments that have been given to you. Number 15, which you can find on page 29, we're asking you to approve the secretarial summer hours. We ask you to do this every year. We do a sidebar agreement between the SEA and, of course, the Board of Education. But please note that in the sidebar agreement that I'm going to ask Mr. Syak to sign, if you, in fact, go ahead and approve that, that will begin on June 24th. Initially, it said June 25th, but that is actually going to be on June 24th. And there is 2 different phases to that, one of which is a reduction in of hours, and the other of which is an increase of hours, but we do not report on Fridays. And then finally, we're asking you to approve teachers to write curriculum as listed for you in the agenda for the 19-20 school year. And that's item number 17, and can be found on page 29. Any questions on personnel?
Comments or questions on personnel? Dr. Labby, I'd first of all like to congratulate Diane and Tremaine on their retirements. Certainly being a cafeteria worker, especially for that length of time, is no easy job. You're up early, you're cooking food constantly for students, and a lot of times you're doing it in the heat of June, in the heat of September, with an oven blazing in front of you. And 25 years of dedication to the Sayreville Public Schools is certainly worthy of recognition. Likewise, I'd also like to recognize Maureen Proudman. Just as she was your confidential secretary during my time as board president, I also work very closely with Maureen. You described her exceptionally well, and you're right. Every time you walk into the office, she always had a smile. She was always happy to see you. You could see it when you walked in. You could see it when she answered the phone. You could feel it when she answered the phone. Her genuine warmth always shined through, and truly a phenomenal resource to our students here in Sayreville through her service to the superintendent as well as the members of the Sayreville Board of Education. And also Carmen Davies. I remember when we hired Carmen, and Carmen succeeded Georgia Bauman, who was a fixture here for a very long time as a teacher, as an English supervisor, and eventually as a Wilson School principal. And the school was exceptionally well run under Mrs. Bauman's leadership. And then we transitioned to Ms. Davies. And I remember about 6 months in calling your predecessor, Dr. Alfano, And this is probably around like, maybe January. And I said, Dr. Alfano, did we by any chance sell Wilson School to South River? And he said to me, no, why? And I said, that building went through a huge transition from a leader that had so much legacy in this district, and I haven't heard a word. Not a complaint, not a peep from anyone. This is an individual who came into our district from outside our district and immediately made herself to home, connected with that faculty, connected with the students, and had such a significant and positive impact on student achievement in her building. But I think her legacy extends beyond just her building, because the diversity that she brought to your administrative team, to Dr. Alfano's administrative team, brought a perspective of educational leadership that just didn't exist in Sayreville at that time, and also in some cases within the administrative ranks is still a void. And one of the things that was probably my biggest takeaway as NSBA president is that I learned from one of the conferences I went to that I will never, ever understand what it's like to be black, to be Hispanic, to be homeless, to be an English language learner. And the best thing that I can do for children is recognize that I will never get it and surround myself with people who have had the experience and people who can help children from diverse backgrounds. And I think Carmen has done that not only for Wilson School, but also for the Sayreville Public Schools as a whole. Any other comments on personnel?
Yes, I have to say a few words about Maureen. I always said that you're getting old when you get your former students, kids in your classroom. So I not only taught all three of Maureen's kids, but I also taught Maureen. Back in 1972 at St. Mary's in South Amboy, she was in my freshman homeroom. And I have seen
Wait a minute,
her.
so she was 14, so that would make you...
I was 12. Why are you laughing? No, we go through this all the time. I also taught our Director of Security, Jeff Sprague. We won't go there either, also from St. Mary's. So, needless to say, folks, I really know that I'm getting old because now my former student is retiring. But I wish her all the best. She's always been a delight, and through the years I've seen her on many levels, her kids and her husband. And the accident aside, I think everything's going to be fine for them, and I wish them much good luck in their future.
Anyone else? Okay. Before we take a motion to approve the superintendent's report, I will open up to public on any item on the superintendent's report, as well as the budget presentation which we had.
Barbara Kilcummins. One question. Are we over cap? Are we within cap, or 2% cap? We've gone over cap last year. Are we?
We are at the 2% cap. We're within it.
We are within with
We're
that.
on it, right? Yep.
We're right on it. I don't know if you have read the papers lately, but several communities and towns, and I think New Brunswick was one of them, that were requesting to approve budgets by municipalities. And people are going back. When we changed the election date, we used to approve the budgets. Now that we changed it, the public doesn't really have input to approve the budget. And what gets me is the amount of state aid that we receive. When I read the Suburban and the amount of money, and we even had a 9% increase, and yet we are still increasing taxes. The reason for all this aid was to help residents and to help our tax payments. People on fixed incomes, young couples trying to get ahead and buying a home, and yet it's just increasing and increasing. You see in Old Bridge that didn't receive state aid is closing a school. But to me, we spend money like it's nothing, just on and on and on. Nobody is tightening up the reins and really pulling in. Because we received the state aid, so we should spend more. And let me clue you, speaking to a lot of people, when they find out their taxes are increasing, they're not going to be happy campers. And if it ever went back to the old way of approving budgets on referendums, or rather, on a vote, you would lose. You would be going back to the municipality and looking to cut it. Look what happened in Monroe. They turned down their referendum. People are leaving the state because of taxes. And you're not pulling in the reins and cutting. Even though they give you a cap purposely, then they give you so much aid, federal and state, and yet we're still increasing taxes. I'm extremely disappointed. And especially with you, Mr. Syak, as president of the board, taking off two people that have experience and have the financial knowledge, and you told me you did it on the request of Dr. Labby on the administration. You are here elected to represent the people, not the administration. And when they read the comments in the Suburban of why they voted no, a lot of people were in agreement. So, Mr. Syak, that fell on you to take away two experienced people, especially Mrs. Batko, who was a former council person, who used to have to review budgets when it was voted upon. And I'm just terribly disappointed, and disappointed no matter what of this budget. And I'm sure a lot of residents are too when they get their tax bills. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Skill-Cummins. Anyone else for public? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public. Just one clarifying comment. I had never indicated that I removed anyone from a committee at the request of Dr. Labby.
You told me personally, when I asked you why,
Perhaps,
you removed and you said Dr. Labby didn't want me.
Mrs. Skill-Cummins, I'm sorry, but I never made that statement.
Yes, you did. Don't lie, Mr. Syak. I don't forget it.
Mrs. Skill-Cummins, not only didn't I make that statement, but I don't think I would make that statement to someone who would then come up to the microphone and use it against me. But anyway, I'll entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Walsh. Any comments or remarks? Okay, hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Balka?
Okay, no on A, number 1. Abstain on D, number 15, page 29.
Mrs. Batko?
No on A, number 1.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes. Okay, the motion is approved. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, we have our committee reports. Are there any committees who wish to give a report?
To save time, Dr. Labby eloquently spoke about a lot of the finance and security measures. The only thing I would like to know is maybe an update on the security cards for our students. It's the only thing I guess we didn't touch on in the budget. Everything else we touched on, so do we have any update? I know we were supposed to have them this month or at the beginning of June.
I'm still hoping to get them soon. The orders are out, they're processed. At this point, we're really waiting on the outside vendor to provide the equipment. We're asking for pretty much daily updates at this point. As soon as we have them, we'll start working on deployment.
Great, okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other committees wish to give a report? Mrs. Rubio?
Student achievement, but likewise, so much of Dr. Labby's presentation dealt with student achievement as well, so I'll pass on that.
Okay. Any other committees wish to give a report? Okay, hearing none. I just have one report from the delegate to the New Jersey School Boards Association. We've got our delegate assembly coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend. I'll be representing the board. There are officer elections. The officer election nominees are unopposed, and there are no nominations from the floor, so that will simply be a de facto vote. Anyone who wanted to run against them would have had an opportunity to file a petition. No one chose to do so. And there will be one resolution on the delegate assembly agenda, which I'll be supporting, that basically indicates that, school districts should not be deprived of state aid that would adversely affect the students, as well as it also calls for a study of NJSBA's current policies with regard to state aid and finances and budgeting. So that report, or that, assuming that resolution is approved, that report will be coming back to the delegate assembly in November. So it really doesn't change, NJSBA's policy significantly. NJSBA has always supported equitable funding for public schools, and certainly while they are standing with districts who are in a situation where they're losing aid, they are firmly in opposition to reducing aid to any individual district. So I don't see an adverse impact to us if we were to take a affirmative position on the resolution. Oh, and the final piece that I should mention is I also attended the Middlesex County School Boards Association dinner, which Dr. Labby referenced.
How was the presentation?
And other than the outstanding presentation that was there, the other item that we had is Mrs. Bloom was nominated for Middlesex County School Boards Association president. There was some confusion as to whether or not we had a quorum present, and Mrs. Bloom is still combing through the bylaws and working with NJSBA. But like the officers for New Jersey School Board, she was also unopposed. So whether or not she's elected still remains to be seen. But if she is not elected, I believe that will go through without fail in September once the group reconvenes. Because as I indicated, there was an opportunity for individuals to run against the slate of nominees, and no one opted to run against Mrs. Bloom or the other officers. So,
Yeah, I've been combing
Mrs.
the
Bloom,
bylaws.
congratulations.
Thank you. I've been combing the bylaws. Hopefully, we can get a meeting before September because the new officers need to be in place before September. But it does say that a quorum is not needed unless it refers to the bylaws. So they really need to read their bylaws and know what they're doing before they go into these meetings. But we'll get it straight.
And once you're president, you'll get them in shape.
Oh, I hope so. But also, Mr. Syak was honored for his 25 years of service to New Jersey School Boards at that meeting, so it wasn't a total loss,
Good photo opportunity.
Yes.
except for the speech.
Okay, any other remarks?
Just one remark. I just want to commend everybody on the board, our finance committee, our security committee, our superintendents, historically, Sayreville is somewhere that has always, by any standard, spent the least on students. I mean, by every stat that came out, we've always had the lowest student spending. So the idea that we're throwing money around is a little crazy. But I'm not proud that we're that way. I value education, and I think there's a lot of people in our town who do value education. When I left my house today, come to this meeting, my wife put the kids in the car to take them to practice, and I'm watching the news, another school shooting. And I just saw, I think one of the kids already passed away. This budget addresses that. This budget, we're having vestibules, security guards. Nothing's 100%, but I'll tell you what, this board didn't sit with their hands on the ground. They didn't do nothing. And I'm real proud of everybody here for doing that. I mean, we have a preschool now with, 285 kids in it? Mm-hmm. That didn't exist a couple years ago. And I mean, kids are getting educated at an earlier. I value education. And you know what? My name is on the ballot this year. I'm running. Vote me out if you don't like that. If you do, my wife thanks you. It's not personal. I just want to make it clear. I value it. And I think this board does, and I'm real proud of this budget, what it addresses, the curriculum it addresses, and really where we've came in a short time, how far we've come. And it's not about me. But I want people to know if you don't like that, if $75 isn't worth our kids being safe in school and having another sport to play and having more classes. Vote me out. John Walsh, W-A-L-S-H. I'll spot you some. Am I allowed to do that? I don't think so. But I'm just, I want to wear it. And if my legacy, I'm gone, I'm out, and my legacy is that our school's safe and that our kids have sports to play and and we have great teachers and administrators in this school, and that maybe they get paid more each year I've been here at least, then I'll live with that. That guy Mike used to come here, I'll die on that hill. I'll take that any day of the week. Any day of the week. I know there's a bunch of kids walking off the Borough Hall field right now jumping up and down because they're going to have lacrosse in the high school. And I know there's a bunch of parents, who are happy that their kids are safe going to school in a great environment. So, kudos to the board and to Dr. Labby and to Erin and everybody else up here. I just wanted to, thank everybody and the parents. I mean, I go around town too. I know a lot of people, they're happy, and I'm happy, and I'm glad that our town finally is recognizing that Sayreville values hard work, hard workers, and we value education in Sayreville. It's worth it. There's some things that are wasteful in this town, not education's not. Thank you.
Any other comments? One final one. I commended everyone who's leaving, but I didn't congratulate the one individual who is here who is moving up. So, Mrs. Giovenco, I want to congratulate you on your new position. I still don't know what the title is. However, I know what the role is, and I know that you've been preparing for this role for a very long time through your work and existing roles that you've had in the district, and I know you're going to do a great job. So congratulations on the new position. Well deserved. Okay, if there's no further comments, I will open it up to public for any item concerning the district. And hearing none, I'll close public. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 21st. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Rubio or Mr. Callahan? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.